Warning, there is a good chance Bitcoin Mike has no idea what he's talking about. Do your own research. Enjoy the show. Thank you. All right, folks, let's look at those markets today. We got Bitcoin coming in at 21,639, Ethereum at 1482, Binance, BNB coin down 7%, one of the biggest dumpers because the SEC is coming after these exchange tokens, which I've been talking about on this channel for the past year. You don't want to be in any of these exchange tokens, especially what happened with FTX. SEC has egg on their face because of FTX. They're going after staking. They're going after APY interest-bearing accounts, and they're going to be going after these exchange tokens. They're going after BUSD. It's just common sense. I don't understand how anybody is even in BNB at this point or anything that associated with an exchange. But the big news is, well, of course, we have Friday, the staking news that the SEC going after Kraken for staking. A lot of people are saying, oh my God, how could they do such a thing? The SEC just wants people to not make any money, blah, blah, blah. And I was looking, I was like, okay, well, what was Kraken offering on staking? 23% for Kava. I mean, 21% for the Seeger coin, 20%. Folks, it's all a house of cards. You do understand that if you start staking as a U.S. customer and you're getting 23% for Kava, there's a good chance eventually that house of cards is going to crumble. Nobody can offer 23%. They're probably not even staking your coins. They're probably lending them out. And that's kind of what the SEC has been talking about. A lot of these high interest, and that's probably one reason Kraken got the attention of the SEC. A lot of these high interest staking, it's all bullshit. It's all a house of cards. It's all going to collapse. If this collapses and the SEC doesn't do anything about it, I mean, the SEC is going to have so much egg on their face, they might even get called into Congress and have to testify to explain why they didn't do anything. Even after FTX collapsed, they were still letting people make 23% on these scam staking. So I totally get it. I totally get why the SEC is going after people staking. Of course, the people who are absolutely pissed off the most about it are guys like Rand Neuner, BitBoy, all these guys. But if you look right here, Rand Neuner, he was the biggest pumper of UST and Luna, and now he's mad that people can't get 23% staking, which is all a big scam. So you have to understand that the scammers are mostly the ones pissed off at the SEC at this point. So here's Rand Neuner. Here's wisdom from Rand Neuner telling everybody to buy Luna.
I'm pumped up to talk about this one.
Pumped. Luna. I think it's the best token out there. I think it's, to me, the most innovative token. It's one of a kind doing what they're doing. It's got network effects. It's got very smart people behind it. And so if someone said to me, listen, of the top 10 tokens in your portfolio, which one would you put more money into, which one do you think is the best? I would say that I think Luna is the best. I think it's the best.
Anyway, I can go on and on about it, and I'm not saying if you're against the SEC, you're a scammer. I'm just saying a lot of reasons that people are pissed off about this whole staking thing is because a lot of people were kind of trading this stuff. They would get into these stakes for a little bit and then get out before the house of cards would crumble. But you can't deny that everything's that's gone on with crypto over the last year. These high interest stakings are completely bullshit. House of cards, just an accident waiting to happen. And when Rand Neuner, here's another video from today for Rand Neuner that I'm going to play. They're all so upset about the SEC going after, BUSD or BNB coin or staking. But what we all knew that the SEC was going to come out with some serious regulations after the FTX collapse. They have to. That's their job. I mean, if the SEC was coming out banning crypto, yeah, I'd have a problem with it. But to just ban staking, which really only affects the profit margins of the exchanges, I don't get it. So anyway, I'm going to play a little bit of this right here.
Security, okay? We're not going to get into the technicals of that because that's very much last week's news. But not only did they deem it to be a security, they made Kraken shut it down permanently and pay a $30 million fine. So, I mean, they didn't say shut it down. They said shut it down permanently. Okay, so imagine being Kraken. Your staking service is deemed to be a security by the SEC. obviously the SEC are a big bunch of bullies. So Gary Gensler comes in and says, okay, you'll pay a $30 million fine, otherwise we'll sue you. Kraken does a calculation in their head and says, hold on a second. If I go to war with the SEC, it could cost me way more than $30 million. And eventually what they have to do is they have to tap out and say, you know what, we'll shut down our staking service permanently, we'll pay you $30 million, and we'll move on. Now that's the SEC's normal modus operandi. And to me, I hate the fact that they're doing it under the guise of investor protection, because it's not investor protection. Because if it was investor protection, then Gary Gensler would want the American investor to be able to earn yields by staking your crypto passively. If you were really protecting investors and you really wanted...
Gary Gensler knows that most of these people staking on exchanges, it will just all collapse, just like FTX collapsed. That's the problem, Ran. Yeah, it's great to make your 23% interest for a year or two, but the next bear market, 2025, everybody's staking, and something happens, people are going to lose all their money staking on these exchanges. I would bet a lot of money that would happen. That's why Gary Gensler and the SEC are trying to stop this staking scam. Now, you can still stake off the exchanges, but you have no idea what these exchanges are doing with your money when you give it to them to stake. We already know that what FTX was doing. And a lot of these exchanges are taking your money, they tell you they're staking it, and they're lending it out, and they're playing games with it.
Investors to make returns in an honest, bona fide way, then you would do your best to allow them to stake legally. Now, what you can see here is that the SEC is actually driving a very different agenda. Their agenda here is, it's a swoop, it's a war, it's an attack on crypto. And
it's an attack on staking. That's what it's an attack on staking. It's not an attack on crypto. It's an attack on staking because, like I said, you have no idea what these exchanges are doing with your money. We know these exchanges are all dirty. They're all dirty. Crypto is 90% scams. I've been in it since 2017. It's all scams. And 90% of YouTubers are scammers too. It's a scammer's paradise.
It's an abuse of power.
And Rand is sitting in South Africa with armed guards outside his condo because he lives in such a third world shithole. You should wish you lived in the United States where they're actually trying to protect people.
Absolute abuse of power. And I'll tell you why I say that. So I watched the interview with Gary Gensler. I'm sure you guys all watched it last week. There were a couple of parts here.
The larger industry, whether you even seem to suggest the larger industry may or may not survive. One of the pieces of that survival, to some degree, I think, has been this idea that one day there may be something like a Bitcoin ETF or something else. Grayscale, as you know, appealing the SEC's Bitcoin ETF decision, which is effectively to say it can't happen. Is there any path at which you think either that specific ETF or something like it could?
The path.
Just want to say, look at some of the comments on this video, like from some of Rand's sheep. This is one, Gary needs to just go far away. I wonder how much this person lost in FTX, BlockFi, Celsius. These people, they just don't get it, that they're playing with scams. Rand Neuner was telling people to buy Luna, UST, Celsius, FTX, every scam in the book, Voyager, every scam in the book, these YouTubers were telling you to buy. They got all of their people wrecked, including George from Cryptos R Us. He was telling people to buy Luna and UST with their 20% interest. It all collapsed. Like I said, I'm going to say it one more time. If you're getting 23% interest on staking on Kraken, come on, folks. Pull your head out of your ass. You don't think that's a house of cards that's eventually going to collapse on you? And if it does, the SEC is going to look like a real do-nothing agency. They cannot let that happen. I'm trying to look at both sides here. If I was the SEC, what would I be doing? I'm not the SEC, so I would just say, SEC, just go away, leave everybody alone. Whatever, everything's a scam anyway in crypto. But that's not the SEC's job. These guys paid a couple $100,000 a year to make sure people don't get scammed. And with everything that just happened in crypto over the last couple years, he has to come down on staking. He has to come down on these exchanges because they're all fucking crooked. 23%. I just showed you guys. 23%. Right here. This is what they're offering on Kraken. You don't think that's a scam? 23%? I mean, and that's why the SEC is coming after these fuckers. Because they know it's a house of cards that's all going to collapse.
Yes, I'm not going to speak about one, but let me generally say, Andrew, the path forward is well trodden. Whether it's large companies that you follow every day, the Apples and the other tech companies, or the automobile companies, manufacturing companies, know how to register their offerings. The exchanges like the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ and so forth know how to be compliant and come into registration. The big broker dealers and the small, thousands of broker dealers, the mutual funds.
Right.
I dare go on. We have tens of thousands of registrants that properly, in good faith, comply. They register, they make the proper disclosures. It's time for this group to do so. The runway is getting...
So he basically said, look, Kraken just should have made the normal disclosures. And in another interview, he alluded to the fact that the normal disclosures would have been as easy as going to the SEC website and making the normal disclosures for investors. Now, the truth is, though, that when he said that, he knows that's bullshit. Not only does he know that that's bullshit, but he's...
Anyway, so Rand kind of goes into here that, there's really no way for these scammy exchanges to register with the SEC because the SEC is not going to let them anyway. I agree with that. I think Gary Gensler probably was caught in a little bit of a lie right there. I don't think these exchanges would be allowed to register with the SEC. But I think one major reason that they can't register is because whatever's going on in their books is so scammy that they just can't register. Like if you say, I'm going to register, if Kraken wants to register to stake and offer people 23%, I feel like Kraken doesn't have a way to explain to the SEC how they're coming up with that 23%, or at least how to do it in a legal way that the SEC can verify. So it's kind of complicated, if you ask me. But I do agree that, a lot of these scammy exchanges, there's no way for them to register because they're just too scammy. And everything that's gone on in crypto over the last year with everything crashing, I do agree that the SEC probably doesn't want to register any of these exchanges. I don't think the SEC wants to allow staking, period, in the United States for U.S. customers because they see it as a house of cards. So is that fair? Is it not fair? I mean, I don't know. I don't even care. See, I just don't care about being able to stake on a centralized exchange because I'm staking off a centralized exchange now as a U.S. customer. So it really doesn't affect me. But I do see the risk if you're, like I've said, if you're staking on a centralized exchange. Eventually, something's going to happen and everybody staking is going to lose all their money. And like I said, the FTX cannot allow that to happen because of what happened with FTX. So it's just common sense at this point. I don't even know why Rand Nooner's so mad about it. He's in South Africa. It doesn't even affect him. And I doubt Rand Nooner is staking on any exchange anyway. He's probably staking on DeFi. So, folks, we knew after the FTX crash that, that the SEC was going to come down with some regulation. And we knew it wasn't going to be regulation that people like, and here's the regulation they're coming out with. They're going after staking. Okay, so Coinbase argues that staking services are not securities, criticizes SEC regulatory approach. Coinbase, one of the biggest cryptocurrency exchanges in the U.S., has stated that the staking service offered on its platform does not constitute securities. The statement made in the wake of $30 million settlement that Kraken and other U.S.-based crypto exchanges, blah, blah, blah. We know all that. Coinbase defends its staking as a service program. So this is actually pretty good for people who want to see people fight against the SEC, and I actually agree with this. So if Coinbase wants to sue the SEC, I hope they do sue the SEC because that would mean years and years of litigation and it won't affect the next bull market. As we all see with XRP fighting the SEC, it's been going on for like 3 years. Well, if Coinbase wants to take the SEC to court and defend their staking program, we're probably looking at 3 or 4 years. So at least we have 3 or 4 years, which will at least get us through to the next bull market. But I do think eventually Coinbase would lose that. I think I've read some statistic once that 98% of all SEC cases are won by the SEC. So kind of fruitless, but it could take years, and at least that might give people false hope. So at least we have a nice bull market. And of course, like I said, Paxos halts BUSD minting as SEC reportedly prepares lawsuit. I mean, folks, let's just use some common sense now. Especially if you're a U.S.-based customer, you do, like I said, you don't want to be in any of these exchange tokens. As much as we love Binance and Binance Coin, I wouldn't be touching it with a 10-foot pole. I've been saying that on my YouTube videos for the last couple months. Binance Coin is obviously a security to me. I'm not even sure how they can get away with it. But BUSD is their stable coin. I wouldn't want to be involved with that either. Honestly, I usually just use USDT or USD or that USDC, which I believe USDC is an exchange coin, but it's regulated, like it's going through the proper regulations to operate in the United States. BUSD was always kind of one of the more sketchy stable coins. But you have to understand, folks, the SEC is going after a lot of these exchanges. It's going after a lot of these staking programs, and it's just the way it is right now. So you can fight it, you can cry about it, but that's how it's going to go, and you want to play the market accordingly. But in the end, I think this will probably end up being good for crypto because, like, I can pull it up again. There's no way this is legit. These, like I said, over 20% interest. We already saw that with UST offering 20% interest. Now, like I said, you go on Kraken, you go on Binance, you go on Coinbase. They say they're staking. They say they're staking your money, but you don't really know what they're doing with it. So there is an added risk. The SEC is trying to get rid of that risk because they see it as a potential next crash. I've been in crypto since 2017. I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I also see this staking, giving people 23% on a centralized exchange as being something that leads to the next bear market or crashes in the next bear market. It's not rocket science. So when these guys like Rand Nooner, BitBoy, whoever, are basically trying to tell you like, oh, the SEC is out to get you, SEC is scamming, remember, they're promoting you every scam in the book. Let's continue with the Grinches of crypto.
Terra blockchain. This is sort of the back end software infrastructure behind everything that's going on with that stable coin we mentioned and the cryptocurrencies that are collapsing this week. This is halted, meaning basically no economic activity can go on here. Exchanges can still trade these tokens, Luna and Terra USD, the ones we've been talking about all week and really have seen a lot of weakness, but they're basically trading IOUs. So there's nothing happening on the back end. Exchanges can still trade, but again, no real economic activity. And, Terra really is impaired here. At this point, the next big thing to watch would be exchanges delisting these tokens, and really that would be the nail in the coffin here. But another update,
which has happened.
The struggles for the two big cryptocurrencies we've talked about, Terra USD and Luna, which are both associated.
Remember, these are all the biggest coins that BitBoy, George from Cryptos R Us, Rand Nooner were telling you to buy a couple years ago. And this is why the SEC, folks. This is why the SEC is trying to shut this shit down.
But, okay, my point is this. Unlike all the other altcoins, it's not really down, right? Not nearly as down as some of the others. But, of course, it's still down from its all-time high, so there is still opportunity there. But, I'm such a fan of Terra, I'm going to bring it up, right? Even though it hasn't sold off in the last 90 days or 30 days, there's just so much goodness with Terra.
Anyway, folks, you can watch my Grinches of Crypto. I've been talking about this for the last year, but all these guys right now mad at the SEC, saying it's the worst thing in the world. They're all the guys that are promoting you the biggest scams in the book over the last year. And I'm not saying they were doing it intentionally. They just have no gauge on the market. I was out telling you guys that UST and Luna was a scam. These guys weren't. They're the biggest channel, so whatever. They're selling the hype, but they have no idea what they're talking about. They'll promote you scams. They'll promote you shit coins. Then when it collapses, they say, "Where was the SEC?" And they all did this. They all said, "Where was the SEC? Where was the SEC?" When FTX collapsed, Luna collapsed, Terra UST, all of them, Rand, George, BitBoy, they all said, "Where's the SEC?" Well, here's the SEC, folks. They've come in. And they're going after staking. So what did you expect? So I think it's good for crypto. Now, like I said, if the SEC starts trying to ban crypto wallets and telling people they can't own Bitcoin and doing stuff like that, yeah, that's not good for crypto. But going after these fucking scammy ass staking on centralized exchanges, I don't see a problem with it. So anyway, like and subscribe. Talk to you later.